Hello, I'm Kads and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to do another deep dive into my progression into the Cursed City for, shall we call it, Rotation 6. I guess the numbers don't really mean anything at this point because now we do know how they intended this game mode to function. Effectively, there have been 5 rotations, meaning that every single stage has 5 different filters, shall we call them, on them, and thus essentially every new air quotes rotation will just be a randomized selection of any of those 5 filters, and that is across normal and hard. So for example, like the Amius fight on normal will not be the same restrictions as the Amius fights on hard, whereas before they were kind of in sync with one another. So on one hand, you will have seen every single stage before, obviously assuming you've completed them, but every single stage has been in existence, but the order in which they're going to be organized will vary consistently for the rest of this game mode's life. And the way I was able to confirm that was because I saw some stages like beyond stage S6, and we're going to talk about my Soulcross progression here later, but S6 is one that I got stuck on before in a previous rotation. I think it was rotation 4, the initial rotation 4, but I was seeing like saved teams for stages beyond it, which wouldn't be possible if it was a full repeat of rotation 4, because obviously I didn't get past it, therefore I wouldn't have saved teams. So that's how I know that it's a randomized set of selection for each of the 5 rotations that we've seen before per stage. So as I mentioned in my video for rotation 5, I'm not going to go through all of the lower level boss stages because at this point you've seen them all, assuming you watched those videos. And if you haven't, go check them out. Whichever rotation you might be struggling on, I might have some aid for you in that particular rotation with whatever teams that I used. But it's going to be a bit redundant to go back and cover all of the boss stages that I used to cover, just because nothing has changed and I can just rerun the same teams that were successful in the past. But nonetheless, again, we'll talk about my progress. Obviously, we did all of normal. That's a given. It's never going to be a problem for me in the end game, even as a free-to-play player. And for hard mode, I did all of the lower stages except for this one stage from Dead Rise, because I recently got a 4-star soul for my last summoning session for White Dread Nia, so now I do actually have enough awakening to attempt it, so I'll be doing that later. So effectively, all of the lower stages of hard mode are complete, and then we made a pretty decent amount of progress into Soulcross, I'm not going to lie. So maybe, what, 8 to 10 stages remaining that are just not feasible, at least this go around, but we'll see future iterations. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to break down exactly how every single team works for all the stages that I beat, but nonetheless, I do want to just highlight them just so you guys can see and potentially get some inspiration for what worked for me if you're struggling on one of these stages. So stage 1, force attack, we have Nishak Vermilord, Shatterbones, Z Itchy, we have Basilisk, and we have Fushan. So as much control and damage as I can mix together to be able to get that one done. Stage 2 here, have Spirit and Attack. So you can see here, we have 2 rares. Look at that, 2 rare champions. But Yannicka, you get from the clan shop. Jetney was an old fusion in Epic, and then 2 rares, notably in stun sets. So that's how we got through that one. S3, couldn't do. I think this might be possible if I build out Errol as another DPS just to do some more damage. I do have Basilisk in a stun set, so you can do, and then Fushin obviously has stuns in his kit. Very similar between 1 and 3, but obviously Shatterbones is not allowed in that one, so I couldn't do a carbon copy. For stage 4, it's a bunch of voids. This is basically my flexing stage where we just got to use as many void champions as I could. So Narcisse obviously kind of carried the team. Tormund's just there because Tormund, and then Skullcrown, you know, quad nuker and some control. Not that hard. We can just kind of slam through it with a bunch of DPS. Iron Twins basically put in a tanky reviver, a brimstone champion, HP burn, and decrease speed here, decrease speed here, decrease speed here. So 3 decrease speed champions to keep decrease speed on the boss, some poison activation, HP burn activation, and then Rotos, because Rotos is a strong DPS. Now stage 6, as I mentioned before, this is where I got stuck in rotation 4, and I was not able to do it because I was trying to make it work with a variation of the comp in this style here, and it just wasn't working for me. And some people in the comments actually mentioned Jingle Hunter could work, and I was considering him, but I wasn't convinced that he was going to work. But now I am most certainly convinced that he definitely works. And we can just start the stages to kind of show why he was so key to this, because one of the biggest struggles for this stage is actually the Leorius the Proud. Oh, I didn't mean to attack, but the Leorius the Proud over here, because he's basically guaranteed to get a turn because he has the unkillable thing on him. So even if you bring him low, well, if you bring him low, he does more damage, first of all. Then you get a True Fear on you because he has more accuracy than your champions will probably have resistance. And then again, he's guaranteed to get a turn because you cannot control him, you can't stun him, provoke, etc. None of those things while his abilities, one of his abilities is off cooldown. But the cool thing about this comp was that we're able to use, I guess we can cycle a bit forward. We're able to use Luria's A3 here to place block buffs on him. And then, you know, if I did this properly, then Jingle Hunter could come in and snipe the Leorius. And then if he gets a kill with this skill here, he has a massive chance to place freeze on everyone else, provided he kills the enemy. And so essentially we could start the round off by killing Leorius, one of the main culprits of my demise. And then we get the free CC from getting that kill on everyone else. And that just kind of allows us to snowball into control. Of course, it doesn't hurt to have, you know, 5-star crushing rend on him, so he does ignore defense on that first hit as well, which again just guarantees that we are going to kill and drop the Leorius. And then of course discard the Sigiled in there for another form of CC with his provokes. And then Luria, of course, also has the AoE freeze. So again, focusing on S6 because a lot of people can get stuck there, but highlighting the fact that we did this with 4 epics and 1 rare. So, I mean, obviously that's the restriction, but nonetheless, you know, this is a very solid team and can most certainly get it done. Stage 7, another rare and epic one. MVP here, of course, is Archmage Helmet, who has the AoE stuns, but we also have Elhain here in a stun set. Dark Elhain was kind of nice because there are some Torments, and so whenever he would land a freeze, he would just kind of pop off and do her thing on wave 3, so that was kind of fun as well. And then Gorgorab, Healer, Reviver. You know, you can put a lot of champions in here. You can run a Royal Guard, you can run a Skuramis for extra control with the provoke. I didn't have him built yet. We'll talk about him later for which stage he came in clutch for. But you could also run Banshee, and she had AoE on the A1 and another AoE on another ability, so you can run her in a stun set. That's how I have her built. So lots of options between the rares and the epics to beat stage 7. Stage 23, obviously this one is really scaled towards how many high tier awakenings you have, because you need an average of 4 across all of the people on this team to even attempt the stage. So lucky for me, you can see, you know, 4-star, 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 and 5-star. So we just happen to have the right champions that can actually get this done. And so basically Theodore did all the work, and then we're just keeping buffs off of them with Madame Saris, and then kind of decreasing their defense with Deacon. But yeah, the rest of them are just really supports here, not much. Theodore's primary DPS. Stage 8, return of the Jingle Hunter. He came in clutch for 2 stages back to back on this particular rotation. So same thing, Stagnant in there, debuffer, Kaja's our reviver. A rare champion, believe it or not, but Abyssal is in a stun set, AoE on the A1, and a potential to place block buffs, which again is quite useful. But same thing, Yannicka is another DPS. Jingle Hunter, we set him up such that he can get the freeze off of the A2 when he gets a kill, unless he's for our form of CC. Then a couple of stuns here with the A1 from Abyssal, and then again Yannicka and just doing Yannicka things with DPS. So it took a few goes to really get it to work, just because wave 3 is a bunch of 3 HP based force champions, so they hit very, very hard. But eventually I was able to get a good run where we were able to get through that stage. Moving along to the first double boss. This one was quite annoying, but this is the team that I used. So you can kind of do this in a multitude of different ways. It depends who you have and what skills they have within these restrictions. But like, you can bring in an Artak or a Tyrant or a Tila. You can bring in AoE HP burn if you happen to have a hero reduction champion within these restrictions. I did not. So what I opted to do was that we had Crowden, and basically if he would land the freeze off rip right out of the gate, then I would just continue on with run. If he'd missed one of the spiderlings for the nether spider, then I would just restart the run until he did. But essentially starting off with freezing the spiderlings with Crowden, placing HP burns, and then occasionally if I wanted to try again, I would stun with Archmage Helmet to try and do that. Well is in there because she's an amazing healer with her passive, as well as having increased resistance, so just giving us a fighting chance to resist some of the things the bosses do. And then one of the sneaky MVPs is actually Maruka, who I do use in my Sand Devil team, or at least the Sand Devil team that used to work. I haven't tested it since they nerfed it, but that's a video for another day. But she's the secret MVP because we basically just hide under Revive on Death if we know that the Nether Spider is about to kill people with a bunch of Poison Explosion. So I guess Tila, honorable mention, she can steal buffs on the A1, so every once in a while I'd run over there and steal a counterattack from the Spiderlings, which is kind of fun, so that when they would attack, she would counterattack and then steal the counterattack. So it's kind of a nice loop of stealing there. Stage 10, another void stage where basically we're just carried by Basher being our control, locking them out every single wave, Genbo being our primary DPS, Epic Champion Coronar is in a provoke set, so he's just nice, a lot of counterattacks with his passive, so we can keep provoking them. Akemtum to place hexes and poisons out there, and then Riho to keep everyone alive with the heals. So I think you could also run Seer. Obviously, a lot of people would probably just run Seer comps. But another mention would be Angar if you have him. Lots of provokes after his buff. And then Tuhawk the Wanderer has like a 2-turn stun. One of his abilities, AoE decrease speed. Pretty decent damage, hurts some decent things. For the Sand Devil, basically tanky Pythion is surviving all of what the Sand Devil can do. He revives the enemy team, He revives my team. We have a Miracle Heal on Ugo to help restore the destroyed max HP on top of a Urigrim healing as well. And then we just basically poisoned him to death between Urigrim and Venomage. And then Fushan was mainly in there for the aura, but every once in a while he'd get like the triple hit, double hit, quad hit on the A1. So just a little bit more damage out of him. But essentially Pythion was the tankiest positive affinity and he just kept everyone alive. Stage 12, couldn't beat it, didn't even bother. It's a bunch of supports. You basically need Ragash if you want to do this because he's the defensive DPS, but without that, it's kind of a non-starter. S13, I have a bunch of champions that qualify, but there's just not enough damage. Again, it's like rares and epics, and I just don't have powerhouses to really do anything here. And like the first wave is a Hacker and Smash Lord, and if you don't kill him, he cleanses and heals everyone up to full, and it's kind of a wrap from there. So non-starter as well. Stage 16, another Void flexing wave, but we have Gall and Genbo's or DPS, Torment again for the control, Riho protecting everyone, and then Umbral Enchantress because she does have the provoke, the 2-turn provoke. So not much to say there. Another Awakening level check. Basically the same team from the other stage. We have 4-star, 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 4-star Harima, and then 5-star on Gomlock. So Harima is obviously the carry in this case, and then filling it up with enough stars to actually start the stage. And then we're getting closer to the end here. 14, another non-starter. I just don't really have enough champions who can do enough here. Like Husk can be good, obviously with AoE stun. Zargala can be good as a DPS and a debuffer. Potentially some freezes from Echak the Wonderin. I do have Ironclad and a Toxic set, but I don't know what else I would need. Probably another like AoE damage dealer or some form of control or a mix. Like Nazana could work AoE on the A1 and a stun set, but I just, it just didn't feel like that was worth investing in for an attempt because that's a lot of RNG. And S20, it's very, very close. I was able to eventually get past stage 1 with this comp, but stage 2 has like 3 cleansers and half of them are force and you're all magic and it's just really hard to control. And it's like if I had another control champion on this comp, then it would just be a breeze, but only having Taragi, essentially, like I struggle bust my way through wave 1, which is like a 1 in 5 chance of success, and then if I don't land the provokes off rip against the force champions on wave 2, they get cleansed and it's just kind of over from there. And then another annoying bit is that like I think there's like Grizzer Iron Guts in there, so if you do a bunch of AoE attacks, you're like healing everyone, and then he gets unkillable, so you have to like get him low enough to proc it, but also then finish him off, but then by finishing him off, you're healing up everyone else. And so, you need like a lot of looping of control, and I just don't have it on that comp. I basically just have Taragi soloing. For the Fire Knight, this one was kind of interesting. Honestly, I tried to repeat it and I couldn't do it. So I don't know. I got lucky on the first attempt, but we have a double Cold Heart, Lanicus for ally attack. The Gizmak is obviously powerful, but he's primarily there as a decreased speed champion. That was his main role. And then Wither the Crown was attempting to keep everyone alive. If I had a higher tier of Miracle Heal on her to restore destroyed max HP, this probably would have worked a lot better. But, did what I could under the circumstances. But I was able to get it done once. Somehow it worked. But obviously just, ally attacking as much as possible with Lanicus. She's unbooked, so it could have been a lot more efficient if she was fully booked. But double Cold Heart is a lot of A1s, a lot of power there. And so just getting the shield down. A couple of Heart Seekers whenever possible, getting decreased speed on as much as possible. Then again, cycling back to the ally attack as much as possible to get the shield back down. And then we'll come back to stage 18, but stage 19 is like the super hard from like rotation 1, where you saw like the supercharged Fodbor the Bards and Fanes and Kinegashis, and I actually don't have her, but Morag Bronzelock, who I'd like to have. She was part of a fusion, so I used her for the fusion, so I don't actually have a copy of her. But non-starter, it's like the Taurus and Marichka one, so like even the Whales and Krakens were struggling with it, which means I don't even have a chance. So didn't even bother. Doesn't matter. But yeah, stage 18. This one was the bane of my existence for like 3 days straight. I built Scramus up for the stage because I did know that he has the AoE provoke, which is affinity friendly, very strong, and then he can counterattack, which can potentially steal turn meter and place stun, so you could have a double CC. But wave 2 was just disgustingly brutal because it's 2 Hegemons. And, you know, even though it's like a 50-50 shot to land block active skills, they landed every single time. And it's on wave 2, and wave 1 wasn't a given all the time. So I spent, I don't even want to know, maybe 9 hours plus attempting to get this work. And I ended up building Amius like 3 different ways. And finally the third way, and I'll go over the build later, that I finally settled on. But eventually we got a build that worked. And then, you know, we have CC with Miscreated Monster coming in there. Beauregard is DPS. Elhain, again, DPS, but also in a stun set. And then Tyrell is our debuffer. So lots of iteration to make this one work, but I'm super satisfied. And we did all of that work for like 2 live arena refills. So didn't feel worth it in the end for the reward for the stage, but nonetheless, it's one more stage that I could beat before. And now I know how to do it. And so when it comes back around, we're not going to be as screwed over. And lastly, the big bad boss in the middle. Once again, this is a repeat of a stage or a way that I've already beaten it in the past. And so we have what I like to do for Amius, for anyone who's curious. I prefer to have double reviver in some form, and then some sort of healer on top of that. Those can obviously overlap if you just happen to have them, or have the right champion that does all of them. But that's usually my like core trifecta. And so we have double reviver just because, you know, if Arbiter loses hers or someone dies at the wrong time, you have the second reviver to kind of keep things in sync. A nice healer, in this case, Wither the Crown, one of the best healers for this fight overall. Brimstone champion, and also just DPS. Whenever we're hit, we have a chance to place the burn, and he can place the Brimstone on his A1, so it just kind of does our damage. And then, of course, your heal reduction champion, in this case, Hellborn Sprite. And for those who are wondering why is Hellborn Sprite on your Awakening wish list? And so, because she is the squishiest on the team, as you might suspect, she is the rare, you know, amongst all the legendaries. And if I can get her to like 4-star, 5-star, he will ignore so much less defense when he's in form too, because she is like death fodder. Because I think she has like 800 defense or something. Yeah, 850 base defense. It's super low HP, 15k. So she's really, really hard to keep alive, and that's part of the reason why I need to run double reviver. But yeah, if I could get her to 4-star, 5-star just from random soul stones, then she'd be a lot harder for him to kill, and she'd be a really, really solid form 2 A1 tank. So if we hop over to the champion tab to talk about the champions that were built for this specific iteration of the Cursed City, no one was rebuilt in this case. It was all fresh builds because, as I stated, we kind of know all of the iterations of the rotations, all the possibilities for each of the stages. So I kind of know who needs to be built. If someone needed to be rebuilt by now, I probably would have tried it. Or maybe it was a state or a rotation where I just didn't get that far in Soulcross. So there's still potential for that in the future. But I digress. So build number 1 on the Jingle Hunter, you can see we didn't even bother to max out his gear. Sad times, but more crit damage could be had on the gloves, and I don't even think he has masteries, so he technically doesn't have 100% crit rate. But you know, he's at 90. He's at 101 if I were to get masteries. But the overall stats here, just under 5k on the attack. We did build him for damage, 220 on the speed, full crit rate with masteries, 215 on the crit damage, and then 320 on the accuracy, enough to be able to land the freeze on the A2. Obviously, having 5-star crushing rend, which I just happened to have from, you know, one of our previous soul summoning sessions, and I didn't intend to use it, but he just came in super clutch. But for the first 2 hits of each round, it's going to ignore 1% defense for every 25 levels. Obviously, the Cursed City stages have a lot of levels, so that's a lot of defense ignore. And again, it's very, very handy for that first hit where you go off, or you pop off with the A2, you kill someone and you freeze everyone else, 100% chance when booked. So super solid. Highly recommend if you are in the end game looking to progress in these stages. Jingle Hunter is surprisingly very, very useful for a mix of damage and control. And then the other MVP of this rotation is Amius in the 3rd iteration of his build. And again, most notably for this ability here, because he has a 100% chance of placing provoke. So again, it's affinity friendly, counterattack on himself, and then continuous heal. And so he's able to synergize that with his A1, where when he's attacked or when he's counterattacking, he has a 90% chance to steal 50% of the target's turn meter, and then a 30% chance of placing a stun. So there is a potential, it's a relatively low shot, but there is a decent chance that he'll place a stun. So you get, again, 2 turns of control for the price of 1. Decreased attack AoE on the A2 is actually pretty useful as well. For the build, we have him in 2-piece stone skin, 2-piece perception, and 2-piece resistance. So you can kind of guess exactly how I ended up building him, but very tanky, 57,000 on the HP, 3,400 or almost 3,500 400 on the defense, very fast, 237, or quite fast, I should say. 400 is really fast nowadays. But yeah, high resistance and high accuracy. So essentially, what I ended up trying to do, instead of hoping to the RNG gods that Hegemons wouldn't lock us out, I wanted to at least guarantee that one champion on the squad would not get locked out, and it would be this guy, and so that we'd always be able to start wave 2 off by AoE provoking everyone, and then hoping that we don't get locked out on the other 4 champions who don't have these abilities, or who don't have a high resistance. But yeah, enough accuracy, more than enough accuracy to land the debuffs as well, and then I guess, and then high enough resistance to resist the Hegemons. All right, so yeah, that's going to do it for my progression in, let's call it rotation 6 of the Cursed City, although again, it's relatively arbitrary what we call it, because it's just going to be random from here and going forward. This is where you guys come in. Let me know in the comment section down below if you do like this newer format, where we kind of just focus a little bit deeper onto hard Soulcross, where maybe not a lot of people are trying to progress, but this is something you're probably going to want to strive to, and we're highlighting a lot of champions that can be useful in that purpose if you are progressing well into the late game. And of course, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below how far you made it in this iteration of the Cursed City. Did you make it out very far? Did you make it to the coveted Fire Knight 1000 Eternal Soul Essence or Soul Coins? And lastly, as always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.